Texas A&M, the offense, I thought, had a bit of an up and down day in the maroon and white game on Saturday. The maroon team did beat the white team 24-10, but there were some notable plays in this game. The white team went into this one with one arm tied behind their back. Let's be real. They were without arguably the four best wide receivers. All right, Noah Thomas, Jade Walker, Moose Muhammad, Jabre Barber. They were without their best offensive lineman in left tackle Trey Zune. They also had only one scholarship tight end in Jaden Platt. Now, Connor Wigman, who is still recovering from the broken bone that he suffered in his left foot against Auburn back in September, which required surgery. The white team was not really able to put their best foot forward, so they only had 128 yards of offense. And almost half that total came on the 61-yard touchdown run from Reuben Owens. Wigman, I didn't think looked elite. He looked a little uncomfortable, but I watched him play last year. Prior to the injury, he was playing good football, so he's not a guy I'm concerned about. I do know that they have an elite 1-2 punch at running back. Reuben Owens, he's that home run hitter. All right, we know he's got great top-end speed, but Le'Veon Moss is a guy that's clearly a very patient runner, a guy that's really mature, and I think he's got that one-cut ability, and on a wet field too, mind you, he looked pretty good. He was running for contact, and I think those two backs really complement each other, and it should be the focal point of what they're trying to be offensively. As far as wide receiver is concerned, if you look at Noah Thomas, and I looked back at some of our notes from him last year, Noah Thomas was a guy all offseason we were saying, hey, keep an eye out for Noah Thomas. Keep an eye out for Noah Thomas. Well, 2023 was kind of an injury-plagued season. Now it looked like we saw him a little bit more in the slot. He had to play on a jet sweep. He's working the middle of the field. There's some things to like about where he's kind of progressing. He's also got some good length as well, and showcased that on the high-pointed ball that was thrown to him by Henderson. So I think Noah Thomas, I'm not going to go as far as to project he's going to be the number one guy. He's going to be the top-tier dude at wide receiver, but there's a lot to like with his progress, and he might finally be able to, if he could stay healthy, might finally be able to kind of be that go-to guy there along the wide receiver spot for the Aggies. The offensive line was pretty underwhelming, if I'm going to be completely honest. And knowing that going into this offseason, that's one area that I'm a little concerned about. Now, teams were split, a little difficult to kind of get a good feel and the chemistry and the cohesiveness. So the format is going to impact the offensive line probably as much as anything else. But I am going to be watching that position group very closely throughout the summer, throughout portal season, and then ultimately when we get into the fall. The one thing that I do know that, though, is that Nick Scorton, not a lot of people last year were talking about him in the Big Ten when he was at Purdue. Purdue had somewhat of a disappointing season, but looking at what he did, 10 sacks last year for the Boilermakers, and he absolutely took over the game this past Saturday. And if you look at the personnel back along the defensive front for the Aggies, now depth is going to be something that we'll evaluate. They'll get young in certain spots. But I think Nick Scorton, along with all the other players that'll be rolling in at those positions, you might make a case that A&M's defensive front is as good as anybody in the league. Might make a case. We're not there yet, but based on what I saw this weekend, they have 3 or 4 dudes that can take over the game. Scorton being one of them. So I look forward to seeing his progress. And I look forward to seeing what the depth looks like at that position as they continue to move forward.